Here we go.
Hello everyone, my name is Jem, and today we are going to reload the Shane Dawson Podcast episode number 7. Let's get into it.
I understood that.
Maybe that's the best way to do it.
What?
It means...
Oh my god!
Oh, Chris, are you okay?
Oh my god, if you died, I die.
Ooh.
Sorry, Ryland.
Shane sliding Ryland is so commonplace, I don't even highlight it anymore.
Could have been
It
better.
doesn't hold as much weight when you throw those around for everyone.
You're not allowed to talk about things holding weight around me. Triggering. Are we good? Oh wait, are we doing this?
Yeah.
Oh my god, is that happening? Should we pretend like we just got out of a time machine? Ooh. Oh, how do
I feel like I always look like I'm from this genre.
Hey guys, welcome to the 90s. Ooh.
Nice.
Hi, welcome back to whatever the hell this is, 90s edition. Did we just get out of a time machine? Or did I just go on eBay and buy used clothes that smell weird? Yeah, it's rough. I think that was from the actual movie.
No, you're kidding
No
me.
way.
I think so.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I know.
That was a Bob
What?
that movie.
Hey, this is great.
Yeah, and Ryland, yours was from the actual trash.
Womp womp womp. Shane bought the outfits for this episode, and we already see the difference in how he styled Chris compared to Ryland. And if you didn't notice right away, Shane straightforwardly told us all he dressed Ryland as trash. Don't shoot the messenger.
No, this is everything. It's lined really well. Like, this is going to be my fall look.
And let's do a fashion update because I spent so much money on these clothes. Like way too much because I really wanted a 90s episode. So Chris, we'll start with you. You're dressed like a 5-year-old.
I love it. I love Nickelodeon. I love Rugrats. I love Hey Arnold. I love like all this. This is everything I grew up with that I love. So I'm happy.
Ryland?
I don't know. I've just got put in this getup and I love it. Oh, you know what though? I forgot about the hat. This is like, I love the color blocking on this. It's going to be the new me for the fall, but where I really gagged was when I saw this Oprah Winfrey Show hat. Is this
Real.
an original?
Somebody went to the Oprah Winfrey Show in the 90s and they got that
You're
hat. And now you have it,
kidding
babe.
me.
I know.
I'm never going to take it off.
I gotta admit, that's a nice 90s touch.
I mean, I took it off for the podcast.
You're not wearing it.
Because I previewed it in the photos and you couldn't see it. So I thought it would be better use for everyone to get to view it throughout the podcast.
No, you look beautiful. Jared?
Yeah, I'm rocking the, what sounds to be a movie-worn, authentic Mighty Ducks jersey of Conway, the captain.
Whoa.
Quack, quack,
You know the
quack.
names and everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
Mighty Ducks is one of your favorite 90s movies, so I just wanted you to feel special.
Dude, I feel so special right now.
I'm wearing an outfit I got for Chris, basically. Yes, I got a little 90s hoodie, but then I have this shirt that says bear on it. And this is because
Hell
I'm
yeah.
identifying, and also, like, I'm just letting you know.
I love it.
Didn't I say in the last episode Shane fancies himself a bear? Well, here he admits he's wearing the bear shirt for Chris, who is attracted to bears.
Wow. Well, speaking of looks, Chris,
Yes.
before we fully dive into this episode, I do want to, like, start with a bang.
Okay.
We're involved in drama.
Are we?
Yes.
Shane is going to discuss the controversy over the previous episode with how they treated Chris. Now, I understand we all make mistakes, and there is a way for Shane to salvage the last podcast. So let's see how it goes.
Wait, we all of us or
Mainly me and you.
What?
Well, Jared a little bit too.
Oh,
For once, Ryland, you're not involved at all.
I love that.
Nice.
Well, people are saying Shane is so mean to Chris.
Now, what do you think Chris's reaction is going to be? I'll give you a second to think about it.
what?
Oh, what do you know? He's incredulous. Chris can't believe people would think such a thing. But nobody here should be surprised that Chris is going to defend his boss. Oops, I mean friend. If Chris really wanted to shock us, he would have said, "Yeah, Shane, you and Jared were being insensitive when I disclosed my addiction." Let's see what happens next, because Jared has a lot of explaining to do.
Oh my God.
Yes. Then they included Jared. They said Jared no longer is making this a safe space for Chris because Jared's laughing at Chris's addiction to jerking off.
I was laughing, a lot.
In solitary.
I will say I entered like a giggle phase. So
I
I can't lie.
Listen, Jared, I can relate. 3 times in my life, I got the giggles during inappropriate situations. I look back at those memories wishing I had an edit button where I could clip and delete my behavior. But where I no longer relate to Jared is the fact that an edit button was available to him and Shane, yet they did not use it. So now what's your excuse?
I think people just feel for Chris. I mean, how can you not love him? He's lovable.
I just realized now that we're under the microscope in this scenario, what I just said is leaving me in hot water. So, Chris, I think as reflecting on it, just the moment is funny. I don't think the whole fact that you were dealing with an addiction, or it could be a potential thing that's causing addiction-like consequences for you, a funny thing. I just thought the story was funny. You know what I mean?
Jared, the story wasn't funny. Yes, the story made you laugh, but it wasn't funny. You get the distinction? You guys, I get it. I can see how Jared thinking about Chris compulsively expelling himself any and anywhere. The ridiculousness of that image. I could see how that could trigger Jared's laughter. However, when you strip all of that away, Chris's addiction is not inherently funny. Now imagine last episode when Jared told his story about how much he struggled with drug addiction. Imagine I started laughing, and then imagine my apology being, no. I'm not laughing about you being on drugs. I'm just laughing at the story about you being on drugs. No, the apology should be, your story about your addiction wasn't funny. I'm sorry for laughing. Also note how Shane titled this segment as Jared's first apology, implying that throughout this podcast, this will be the first of many. Shane is not taking this seriously. He's already with the jokes, even while the apology, quotation mark, is going on.
Well, no, I'm trying to think. I'm like, is there a world where, do I say anything to you that later on, are you like, oh my God, Shane was mean to me?
Here we see Shane setting Chris up with this question. Because if Shane really wanted an honest answer from Chris, he wouldn't have asked him in a room filled with his co-workers with a camera rolling.
No, I feel like you're very sweet to me and like encouraging.
Surprise, surprise, Chris sings Shane's praises. But let's just say, for argument's sake, behind the scenes, employer Shane had initial conversation with Chris alone and asked him if he felt uncomfortable with his revelation on the last podcast. Employee Chris most likely would have still responded, everything's fine, with a big smile on his face because we're in a recession. So yeah, even if Chris told Shane behind the scenes he was okay with everything, Shane had to get Chris to say it out loud on camera. Why? It's an insurance policy. So let's say Chris, in a year or 5 years, comes up with a YouTube video saying how awful it was working with Shane. Shane can always point back to this video when Chris said,
Truly, I feel like you're very sweet to me and like encouraging, but like kind of all of you are like, you always say nice things about me and like lift me up. I'm like, I'm repeating myself, this I've said this every podcast now, I'm shy, I'm awkward, whatever, but you guys like make me feel comfortable and like a part of the group.
Yeah, like that one guy in the group everyone makes fun of. It's clearly evident to all of us on video that you are being treated poorly. But in order for what we see to mean anything, you have to agree with it too.
I'm not bullying you,
No,
right? Perfect.
No,
Okay,
no,
cool.
you're not.
Perfect.
I'm clear.
He said, perfect, I'm clear. As we see, Jared made sure that Chris absolved him of all wrongdoing on record too.
As I was saying it, I realized, I think if you watch it, you can even tell in my face that I'm like, I went too far. And like, and it's also a super awkward, uncomfortable thing. So I think I laughed at certain points because it was a strange thing to say. And also I just kept going. I should have stopped. I definitely overshared.
So you really were like, oh, I should not have been saying this.
I worried. that was the case.
I don't want that.
Right, because what else could Shane use for content if not Chris?
I think it was also just a teachable moment for people and like how human interaction could work.
Sorry, you saying
Because
teachable moment shook me.
I think teachable moments, but it's a teachable moment because we're all very close, you know. I think that comes across and that's very obvious. But we all care about you deeply, Chris, and the fact that you were able to share a moment and we kind of chuckled about it or whatever, and you knew that it wasn't meant in a harsh way, it just shows that people could have conversations like this in a comfortable place. And, you know, it's okay to laugh a little bit about stuff. You know, maybe sometimes people are afraid of being vulnerable, but if you're with a group of people you enjoy and you're comfortable with, it's easy. We could even laugh about it, you know?
Nope. Don't fall for the okie doke, Chris. Nobody was laughing when you talked about drugs, Jared. Nobody had zingers for Shane being a workaholic. Jared, you're not all close. You're close to Shane because that's your brother. Ryland is close to Shane because that's his fiance. Chris is just an employee that you have manning the cameras as well as co-hosting that you somehow convinced is your friend.
Yeah.
Do you all see this title? Shane has the nerve to title this Healing by Laughing, again doubling down on the idea that laughing at Chris's addiction was not inappropriate. No, quite the opposite. Shane thinks it was for Chris's betterment.
Also kind of, maybe I'm speaking for everyone, but like I know at least with you, like how we laugh at uncomfortable things or things that were like dark or painful or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's also kind of how we deal with stuff.
Chris, don't do it. Do not use Shane as your barometer on how to deal with dark situations. Because listen, if you were to go to a therapist, any therapist, and say, I laugh at dark and painful things, they would clap their hands together as they lean back in their chair and say, let's unpack this.
There were a lot of people that felt validified by you speaking out on the subject matter. So I hope that it doesn't make you shy away from sharing things that seem vulnerable.
Only on the internet will people say the most outlandish things for likes. Chris, don't let Ryland and Shane tell you to continue to say things you should have never said just so that they can keep the engagement rate up for YouTube's algorithm.
The amount of people in the comments that were saying that they can't stop jerking off, which...
Well, if they're doing it in public, they all need to seek help too. Y'all, do you see how easy it is to encourage people to do things against their best interest just by complimenting them? Chris, what did your mom say when she saw the last episode? What did your real friends say when they saw the last episode? Those are the people who have your best interest at heart.
Also, I think 80% of the audience is women, and I'm like, you guys can't stop flicking the bean?
Whoa, don't be sexist.
Wait, is
it any different?
But dude, your jacking off talk was like, it was so teachable on so many dimensions. So like, I'm so stoked it happened, and it was my favorite thing for so many reasons.
I mean, I did get nice personal messages on like Instagram of people saying like that actually meant a lot to me, or that I've never heard anyone else talk about that. And
yeah, that should have been another clue for you to figure out that you said too much. Most people don't go on the internet and confess to crimes, but for some reason, YouTube seems to be the place to be, where you can confess to criminal activity and get praised for being so relatable. But then again, these are Shane Dawson fans, so...
I relate and stuff. So that made me feel so much better. I also just didn't realize, like, as recorded, like, when I was watching it, I didn't realize how deep I went into it. Like, I feel like I went on for 10 minutes about it. And I was like, oh my God. Like, as I started sweating as I was watching it. And then, like, and
I cut it down. It was like twice as long.
Did you all hear that? Shane knew he had to cut it down, and that's the stuff he left in. Can you all imagine what Shane took out? So there you see, he had the ability to take out whatever he wanted, but he left it in. And I know Chris is laughing, but Chris told us long ago on the podcast, he laughs when he's nervous, uncomfortable. That's not a cue for all of us to laugh with him. No, if something's not funny, don't laugh.
And then, like, because I truly, like, the last time we recorded was the most comfortable I've ever been with you guys. Oh. So, like, I just had fun and said whatever, not thinking at all about, like, who's going to see this one day.
They lulled you into a sleep. They had you not even realizing what was happening.
And, like, just totally forgetting that, like, my mom watches this, my boyfriend's mom and sister watches this. Like, just, like...
No, I'm proud of you, Chris, for opening up, and I know that was a lot, and I would have definitely taken it out if you told me to.
This guy's smart. Shane goes on record again, letting us all know that Chris did not tell him to edit anything out. He's covering his bases. And we all have to understand, Chris as the employee, even if he felt uncomfortable after the whole situation, it's not as easy for him to go up to Shane and say, can you cut out 15 minutes of a recorded hour-long podcast? Remember, they talked about it for a long time, and then they had Ryland do a recap of it after the show. That would mean that they would probably have to scrap that show and shoot another show. Chris has a very passive demeanor, and Shane bet on the fact that Chris would tell him everything was okay with that episode, rather than, hey, let's delay production and reshoot another episode.
But now I'm thinking maybe we should lean into this because, we had the moment where people thought we were fucking. So like maybe it would be good. Like if people think we're fighting, we're beefing, then they won't know that we're, not.
It's like rom-com bully, though. Rom-com villain,
But you're also just so not a bully in actual life. Like in real life.
Thank you.
You're so nice.
I thought so. And the comments made me wonder.
Kudos to the fans that called Shane Dawson out in the comment section. It almost worked.
No, Chris, we love you so much. We're so proud of you for sharing your vulnerabilities. And you know what? To make up for it, I think what we should do in this episode is I think we should all share one thing that we're really, really, really embarrassed of, that we really don't want to talk about, that we never thought we'd say out loud, that will probably shame our families. But we'll do that later.
No, let's skip ahead and do it now, and then we'll circle back and watch the rest of the episode.
Middle school was horrible for so many reasons. But one of them was...
This is why I say Chris talking about his struggles is not a fair trade-off. Here, we have Shane saying in order to make things right, because of how they treated him in the last podcast, they're all going to talk about their most embarrassing moments.
I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the podcast, but I was a bedwetter and also a pants wetter for my whole childhood. It was at a restaurant, and then you did something that made me laugh really hard, and I peed my pants. At a nice restaurant, peeing your pants to a point where you're now dripping on the floor, and you've ruined the booth or the chair.
Yuck. I mean,
wow, harsh. Okay, he's being vulnerable with us.
Vulnerable right
He's
now?
being very vulnerable with
This,
us.
by the way, this whole peeing my pants thing made me cry a lot when I was a kid. So now you're triggering me.
Wow.
Or like,
You see how Shane is equating an embarrassing moment, which is usually something funny, with Chris's addiction? It's not the same, but he's treating it as if it's the same. And it happens again.
Well, I could tell you an embarrassing story that happened to me.
Please.
Well, one time I was in school and I got pantsed straight up.
Ooh.
Pantsed, underwear and all, giggles and chuckles, and
how many?
yeah.
And in case there's anybody out there who doesn't think what Shane did is any big of a deal, I want to read something to you. If Chris was caught in public expelling himself, he would get an indecent exposure charge, a misdemeanor offense. According to keglawyers.com, if convicted, it's punishable by up to 1 year in county jail and up to $1,000 fine. A second offense would be charged as a felony crime and you'd be sentenced to California State Prison. And last but not least, a conviction would require one to be registered as a Tier 1 California sex offender. You see how serious this is? It's serious because the state treats it as something serious. So if I had a friend who comes to me and says they have this problem, what you won't see me do is laugh hysterically about it and tell him that laughter is healing. Remember this from last episode?
This is a warning.
Notice Shane gave a disclaimer instead of actually researching the information so that he could clearly warn his viewers.
you need to be careful about where you jerk off, because I read an article. I didn't fully read it, but I read an article, and a guy was jerking off in a plane, and he got arrested, and now he's a sex offender.
And this is why I hold Shane ultimately responsible. He's in control of the edit button, and he knew the reality of what Chris was confessing to. He even stated it on air, yet he chose to keep the most damning parts in the episode. Bad boss, bad friend. And to add insult to injury, Shane let Jared talk to his heart's content about having a couple of DUI charges.
Talking about the response to the last episode and how people were really thankful for Jared for telling his story about his history of addiction and recovery, and a lot of people connected to it. I think it honestly,
And Chris is really.
But
Chris touched a lot of people.
So a lot of people were touched by that. They felt bad word.
Still with the jokes, I see.
But now people were touched. We know what you mean.
Yes, we were talking about it, and you were like, I kind of glazed over getting a couple DUIs. Should I tell the full story and like what happened? And I was like, I mean, if you're comfortable with it, because that was a really scary time, and
The second DUI I got is actually a really crazy story.
Notice that Shane added a disclaimer with a very clear warning about not to drink and drive, and what you should do if you suspect somebody is drinking and driving.
So I was going really fast, and I didn't realize I was heading directly into the traffic circle, and I started skidding out, but I mean, I was wasted, and I couldn't really make, really quick decisions, and I drove right into a tree on the passenger side. So, all the passenger side was caved in, and I knew what was up. I knew, there's no way I'm getting out of this shit. I just got my second DUI. This really sucks.
He let Jared talk about how seriously it affected his life, how he went to jail for it, how he went to therapy and AA for it, and how he recovered. So Shane knows how to be sensitive and how to treat a sensitive topic. Notice, he did all of this for his brother, but nothing for his supposed friend, Chris. And this is why I know Chris finds it difficult to express his true feelings in front of Shane. Look at what he told Lizzie, the co-host of The Sip, off air.
Last week, Chris told us about all the sorts of places he does that kind of thing.
And this week, Chris told me that telling you guys that is his biggest nightmare and he doesn't want to talk about it, so maybe we shouldn't.
Oh, we can pivot.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Chris felt comfortable expressing how he truly felt to his other employer, Lizzie, and I'm sure looking for some kind of comfort. And then she goes on to goof on him on her podcast. I showed you all of that last episode, but I'm sure you guys get my point. Chris said it was his biggest nightmare and he never wanted to talk about it, and here we are. And all throughout the rest of this podcast, and even up until the end in Ryland's recap, they still continued to goof on Chris and his addiction.
Lights, camera, action. Ryland's recap is about to happen. Ryland's recap.
On today's episode of the Shane Dawson Podcast, Chris disappoints his entire family, leading to his first apology tour.
Ooh.
Users have weighed in, saying that they relate to Chris being addicted to jacking off.
And just for good measure, they again use Chris's addiction as a punchline.
Chris doubles down and says he shoots massive loads,
Chris and Ryland both reveal they shoot massive loads, which honestly annoys their partners.
Shane is not Shane.
Yeah.
Despite popular belief, Shane is not a bully. And I heard that we have a word from the victim.
Despite popular belief and what you all as viewers may think, it turns out Shane Dawson is not a bully. And to weigh in on that, field reporter Chris will weigh in. Chris?
Shane is not a bully. He's a wonderful human.
In other news,
Good job.
They again have him clear all their names.
Chris has never jacked off in our house.
It's true.
Shane doesn't
The
believe him.
verdict is out. The verdict is still out if Chris is deemed a masturbation station in Colorado.
And of course, Jared has to get his shots in. And then Shane says this.
We have a field reporter who's in the bathroom with the black light.
Chris stands strong in defending himself and his family, saying he's never jacked off in the Dawson Adams residence. However, Shane has hired a black light expert and is currently searching as we speak.
It keeps going.
And I'm just sending a warning out to the janitors at the Denver airport. Because when he gets to that bathroom, there's going to be a massive shooting load. Prepared, locked and loaded, ready to splooge all over a fucking stall. I already know it.
Oh, this just in. Shane, to comfort Chris, says that he's jerked off at an airport bathroom too.
What?
I did.
Shane could just come back and say that all of that was just a bit. The same thing he did for his cat.
It's not a cancer thing. Jared confirms it's not a cancer thing.
In more ways, the internet can cancel Shane. He has now revealed
Ryland
he also jacks off in airport bathrooms.
What
What's
the-
the craziest place all of you have jacked off in?
No. No.
Below.
Can you imagine the call? No.
Why can't we ask that?
Please no.
I don't know. I feel like it's weird.
If you're legal to jack off in your state,
Yeah.
Imagine the comments are just in places like beach, church. Like it's just like
theoretically, where would it be exciting to masturbate?
Roller coaster, haunted house, McDonald's drive-through.
if the comments are places, I'm gonna lose my.
I'll tell you where it's not exhilarating to jack off. In jail.
But they do it.
Oh, they
Depending,
do.
though.
They do.
Depending. Maybe some guys are into
Oh,
it.
sorry.
The boys then go on to have a detailed discussion about wet dreams. I'm giving you a bit of context so you can see the lead up to what happens next.
No, most of the time I'm not a dream rememberer, but what I do know is I'll wake up to a mess and half hard, and I'm just like, God. See, this feels like oversharing. This feels like one of those moments where my mom was like, I had to click out of the podcast.
Out of curiosity, like when this happens, is it in comparison to like typical splooge sesh? Is it like much more voluminous in splooge? Do you
No.
notice a difference in volume?
No, it's about the same, but I would
Nice.
say I splooge like quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
Generally.
So, we talked about this actually.
Chris and I were talking about this last night.
What
like
the fuck are you
sizes of our loads.
What?
Here we see Chris hint at it first that he and Ryland were talking about a sexually suggestive topic last night. That alone would have gotten a reaction out of Shane, but before Shane could even respond, here comes Chris saying, "We went on a date."
So where was I?
We went out to dinner. He took me on a date.
And I wore something blue, which you know gets Chris
Wow.
going wild.
As if using the word date wouldn't trigger Shane enough, here comes Ryland again to say that he wore blue because he knew that Chris liked him in blue.
He did look very nice.
And if that wasn't enough, Chris verified that yes, Ryland indeed looked good.
Oh.
Look at Shane's face.
Oh, dude.
Look at his face. The old jealousy trick, huh? Just know this, Chris. Shane will be more upset with you than he will be with Ryland. What we have here is a perfectly even love triangle, or as I like to say, an equilateral love triangle. That's where Shane is right at the top. He is crushing on Chris, and as we can see, Chris is crushing on Ryland, who in turn is crushing on Shane. Now, Shane would prefer for the triangle to look like this. He wants both Ryland and Chris infatuated with him. And even though Ryland is flirting just to make Shane jealous, Ryland knows more than Chris that Shane will be angry. Be careful, Chris.
About load specimens and whatnot?
It's fine. We had drinks on our date. It's fine.
We had pear martinis. We were talking about like partners and like
You're talking about my load?
no, we were talking about our loads and how it affects landing on our partners.
Oh, yeah.
And then Lizzie was confused. I was like, yeah, sometimes Shane gets annoyed if it like hits his face.
Okay, so Ryland lets us know that Lizzie, his co-host from The Sip, was also there. Okay, cool. All this means is that the SIP podcast went out for a business meeting. And this is just a tip for anyone listening. If there is even a hint that your partner has a crush on your friend, don't provide that friend with any details of what is going on in your bedroom. Remember that.
Or he like has to like.
This is a lot. This is a fucking lot right now.
Yeah, I'm feeling weird.
Oh,
Keep
Jerry.
going.
So we're in the middle of dinner at like this really nice
You
restaurant.
guys were
and
saying this in the middle of dinner?
Yes, and they sat
At a
us.
nice
They
restaurant?
sat us in the middle of
Yuck.
the dining room. And Lucy's like, well, I just can't picture the position you would be in to even have a shot at getting to Shane's face.
Straight woman.
And she made me spell it out for her, like, like show her the position in which I would be in for come to go.
She made you do that?
Chris
She's a very persuasive woman.
didn't
She's
seem like a
very
choice.
persuasive.
And then Chris and I, we bonded over like the amount that gets everywhere.
Yeah, we both have huge loads.
Well, I said mine were medium to large. You
Hi,
said
Chris's
yours were
mom.
huge.
We love you.
You see that there? That's Shane taking a quick jab at Chris by reminding him that his mom was watching. Yeah, Shane may be laughing, but he is not amused. And Chris, please believe, if you thought flirting with Shane was bad, flirting with Ryland is worse.
He's half German, he's so bright, he's a factual delight. Are you ready for some fun? German facts with Chris.
Chris,
Yes.
my beautiful, humble, amazing king, who we all love so much. Thank you. What's your German fact?
The first ever book was printed in German, and I just think that that's really cool.
First-
I've told you all to keep an eye on these Chris segments that Shane loves to do. We will properly go into it on the next episode.
I just have so many religious questions, but I don't think we can talk about all that.
Wait, why?
I don't know. Are we allowed to talk about that?
About religion?
Yeah.
I think so.
I don't want to take up time either. I'm just genuinely curious.
Chris then brings up the topic of religion, and Shane goes on to explain to Chris why he thinks there is a God.
What I will say is, for me, when you say that, like you want to believe that there's a God, or you kind of are open to that. What I would say is, like, the fact that we met, the fact that we connected so many years ago, and then it came back around full circle at certain parts of our lives when we needed each other.
When you needed him, not when he needed you. I'll explain later.
And now we're doing this. Like, to me, it's hard to say there's not something bigger than myself that makes all these things happen. Like, even getting canceled and even all these other things, like, it all leads to something. When you look back, you're like, whoa, that all made sense. And that was a struggle and that was a challenge, but it led to something that changed my life or enhanced my life or brought people into my life and took people out of my life. Like, so for me and you, I'd say, like, proof of a God existing is like me and you sitting here right now. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because how else do you explain that? Like,
Yeah.
the way we met, all of that.
I'll explain how you met. For a long time, since the beginning of this series, I was under the impression that Shane and Chris were newly acquainted. Imagine my surprise when a couple of episodes in the podcast, they talked about being friends for 10 years. It didn't make any sense to me. Remember, Shane didn't even know that Chris wasn't Mexican. Chris talked about dark moments in his life, and Shane didn't give any indication that he was aware of what was happening to Chris during those times. Shane went through a big cancellation a couple of years ago, and he would always say that all his friends left him. Now I believe when all Shane's friends had the good sense to leave him, that's when Chris came back into his life. Shane and Chris say they've known each other 10 years. So let's take a trip back to 2012.
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm here at VidCon with. Hey guys, how's it going? So we all just met Shane Dawson. I fanned out. I don't know about them. We fanned out for Shane Dawson. It was the coolest thing ever. It was so cool. He is so nice. Shane Dawson is such a nice person, and he's so cool. It was such an awesome experience. It was crazy. Shane Dawson. I'm gonna calm myself down. I'll talk to you later. Peace.
Now we know the reason why Chris can sit there, laugh, and smile while everyone around him berates him. Chris was never a friend of Shane. Chris has always been a fan. And once you realize this, everything else starts to make a lot of sense.
I love it.
Do you feel like you regret anything you said today?
Today, no. Today I feel good.
All right, see you guys next time. Bye.